Esta mañana vamos a tener la primera conferencia magistral del día. En realidad es la séptima en lo que va del Congreso, que es Nuevo Paradigma, Ciudades del Futuro, a cargo de Eric Overland. Él es presidente de la World Future Studies Federation. Y vamos a hacer un breve resumen de su actividad profesional. Él es presidente de la Federación Mundial de Estudios del Futuro y el coeditor en jefe y cofundador de la Revista Europea de Investigación de Futuros. También ocupa un puesto a tiempo parcial como investigador invitado en la Freie Universität Berlin, Alemania. En Noruega es asesor principal de políticas del Ministerio de Educación e Investigación. Ha representado a Noruega como delegado oficial en varios grupos de trabajo de la Unión Europea y en el Comité Directivo de Políticas y Prácticas Educativas en el Consejo de Europa. Overland ha publicado varios libros y artículos científicos sobre estudios de futuros y es uno de los profesionales de la prospectiva con más experiencia en Noruega. Fue el gerente de proyectos de Norway 2030 por el gobierno de Noruega de 1998 al 2001 y ha realizado estudios de futuros para agencias y empresas comerciales tanto en Noruega como en el extranjero. También se ha presentado otros libros como el número temático 2013-1, On the Horizon, y un libro de texto a nivel universitario, Carpe Futurium, cómo gestionar el futuro, entre otras actividades más. Queremos darle la bienvenida a nuestro expositor de esta conferencia magistral, la séptima del Congreso, Nuevo Paradigma, Ciudades del Futuro, a cargo de Eric Overland, presidente de la Federación Mundial de Estudios del Futuro. Le damos la bienvenida, le agradecemos de antemano su participación en el primer Congreso Internacional Plan Futuro 2020, Paradigma para una nueva era. Y lo dejamos ya en el uso de la palabra, escuchamos atentamente su participación. Tendrá hasta las 10:20 de la mañana para poder compartir sus experiencias. Bienvenido, expositor Eric Overland.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi. Hi. How are you? I had to say buenos dias in Peru. To me, it's in the early afternoon, so we are 6 hours on, later than you are. Let me first express gratitude and thank you for having me. My name is Eric Overland. I'm the president of the World Future Studies Federation. The World Future Studies Federation is one of the most comprehensive network of futurists around the world. And we have members in more than 60 countries, and I'm very happy to be here today. And we had our World Conference in Mexico last year and was very happy to learn to know Latin America and this region. I'm going to share with you some thoughts, some ideas that I've been dealing with lately. It's not, a conventional urban planning lecture that I'm trying, and I prepared this much more, in the interface between sustainability and future thinking and future research. So I'm just going to share with you yes. Now, you are seeing my presentation now, or? Yes?
Yes, we're seeing it.
You're seeing it. Perfect. Okay. The title of my presentation is How Eco-Smart Cities Urge to Move Beyond the Natural and the Artificial. The reason why I pinpoint that, the ideas about what is natural and what is artificial is that I think we are within societal change that also influence our perception of what is given as something natural and what is considered as being artificial. And in particular, I think if you see the development of cities and urban areas, they are really challenging some of the conventional, traditional perception, expectation of what is actually natural and what is artificial. So I'm going to, play around a bit around those kind of ideas. If you read conventional reports and prognosis, they delicately announce a statement that 55% of the global population currently live in cities. By 2050, the number is expected to reach 68 to 70%. And additional 2.5 billion people will reside in the urban areas. And China's cities alone will be home to staggering 900 million people. And some also say that by 2030 there will be around 40 megacities, and 9% of us will live in one. And then I mean megacities. And there's also the fact that cities are now constructing what we may call new natures. Cities are the place for innovation, creativity, sustainability, management, and change. In many ways, a lot of people say cities are the future. And also, cities are hubs for digital nodes around the world. I mean, we're going to be connected in an absolutely different way than we have ever seen, and that's even in the close future. So, but in the long future, we're going to have, we are going to consider that the contemporary time we are living now is a kind of a digital stone age. We have just seen a surface of it on the beginning of this development. Also within conventional urban planning, in my opinion, they are addressing particularly three different challenges, and that is how to manage migration. The facilitation of internal and international migration to cities is said to be one of the defining shifts of the 21st century. It's also a question about countering inequality, so providing equitable access to all elements of urban life, including transport, sanitation, healthcare, education, and work to facilitate economic growth and cement social stability. That's, the second big challenge that you have to deal with. And then the third one is sustainable scaling, ensuring the sustainable development of infrastructure, the reduction of pollution and the creation of safe, healthy environment in time of accelerated urban expansion. And I mean, it's as long as, there are going to live more and more people in the cities, those kind of challenges have to be dealt with in different way than it used to have been dealt. And that means also that urbanization and digitalization are two of the most influential trends in contemporary society. That also means, although we may identify megatrends here that definitely will change our lives, within a few years, the changing urban landscape is also followed by a great number of uncertainties. That means demographic trends, high pressure on urban areas, digitalization, globalization, pressure towards more efficiency, and so on and so forth, are pointing at uncertainties. And then it raises a question on how are urban planners supposed to deal with this kind of uncertainties. I live in a country that in which the political administrative system heavily rely on forecasts. That means a forecast is you look at the trend development, historic numbers, and how the development has been, and then you just extrapolate the development into the future. I think what we are experiencing now, not at least how we are dealing with the pandemic, and how the pandemic in many ways surprised a lot of institutional settings in all countries in the world. We have to rethink and try to think more heterogeneous about the future. We are not, talking about future anymore, but about futures, about possible different futures, and that's what foresight, future studies, and future research is all about. Is to, try to think around uncertainties and to model different possible developments, and without saying that one development is more likely than the other one. Of course, you can say that too, but you cannot only say that. And if you look at about the development in urban areas at time being is marked by what I called new natures. I'm going to come back to what I think about in that sense, that are in an emerging phase, how to understand it, and also the ability of, what about the ability of the society to take advantage of research and scientific achievement? That also is a crucial ability of a society to take advantage of these kind of achievements. In particular, you see that with the Corona crisis, how many countries are investing heavily into research and are doing developing this vaccine in record speed. That's, in my opinion, that's a very positive sign that you're actually able to strengthen the way and to deal with the uncertainty within in an urban or modern structure of society. And also the pace of adoption of legal and other regulatory frameworks for radical breakthrough technology political services important, but it's also uncertain how we are doing that. And urban planning thinking has to somehow try to model and qualifyingly develop images of how you are supposed to do that. And last but not least, how are megacities approaching possibly future pandemics? And if you see, there's a list of different uncertain, what I call uncertain technologies toward 2050. I won't read all this, but you see that the synthetic biology, artificial intelligence, computational design, you are all familiar with all these kind of technologies, but still, the outcome and how we are dealing with these kind of technologies are subject of a huge uncertainty, and therefore the whole, to think urban planning and to think development of urban context and urban societies, you have to go deeply into and try to look at possibilities and possible consequences of the introduction of these kind of technologies. Will we, for example, be able to create floating vertical farms and carbon sinks? This is just a picture of how it could be possible to do vertical farming, which is also what is a typical example of what I call create the constructed nature. That is not given to you, but it's constructed, and it gives you the it satisfies your demand on food and a lot of other things, nice air, for example, and so on and so forth within urban areas. And then, and you can see it's a good integration of synthetic biology, AI, and nanorobotic manufacturing produce virtual farm and carbon sink transportation structures, for example, like this. That's I think I got the picture from a science fiction book or something. But I mean, it could be today too. I mean, we are able to build things like that today. Will we succeed in creating eco-smart cities and retrofitting and the integration of physics, biology, engineering, geology, and artificial intelligence? Make us, cities as something that we had never experienced before. And here you see a kind of building that are, creating. There's also a vertical farming system. So what I really are up to is not to demonstrate, because you are probably much more familiar with this kind of development than I am. But what I'm, in fact, want to address today is, will 2050 technology begin to leave us behind, or will we shake hands and then merge with technology? Jerome Glenn, the head of the Millennium Project, he used to say, if you can't beat them, why not join them? But what is join them? What does that actually mean? What does it really mean when urban environments create what we may call constructed natures? What does it do to us? And what is this kind of new nature, and how are we supposed to relate to it, and how does that challenge our conventional expectation or perception of what nature is? And how will the emergence of transhumanism and the digitalization of body and soul influence us as human beings, the concept of human beings? And what I'm up to, and my message today, is to, indicate that when nature is constructed, is it then appropriate to talk about the nature that is given, that is clean, that is representing an equilibrium and in an ecologic harmony as a reference point to all kinds of artificialities and manipulation? The premises for this talk for me today is to answer no to the last question. The contemporary developments within city planning above all challenge our ability to differentiate between what we traditionally consider to be natural on the one side and what is expected to be artificial on the other side. If you look at yourself and how you grew up, even if you grew up in a city, you wanted to go up, to take a weekend off, and you go for a walk in the forest and so on and so forth. And then you experience a nature that you have the opinion that has ever been there, that is not, big part of that nature hasn't been influenced by human beings at all, maybe, and something like that. But if you are going along this development that we are just experience the beginning phase of today, it might do something about that kind of expectation and that kind of perception. That might sound okay, and that's and you might say, what so? But that's really some white principle and very how do you say, influence not only your psychological expectation and interpretation of your surrounding, but also it influences a lot of policy issue and a lot of approaches how to understand the world and so on and so forth, and also raises a lot of fundamental philosophical questions. So then, how is the futures field, for example, supposed to respond to the developments that we in particular identify within the area of urban planning and development? I'm president of World Future Studies Federation, and the World Future Studies Federation, in 2 years' time, we have our 50 years anniversary. And what was, the beginning of this federation? What were their concerns? What were they up to? For 50 years ago, Leading Future were launching sustainability thinking and anthropocentric worldview as the way we should think, act, and foster change in the future. Today, sustainability is more mainstream, with some exceptions, of course, but it's related to the situation from 50 years ago. Sustainability is, incorporated as goals in the UN system. It's everybody talks about the kind of sustainability and so on and so forth. It's somehow embedded in our worldview and embedded in our expectations. And as futurists at that time, they were pioneers. They were really going into something in a field that wasn't there. In the 50s and early 60s, futurists were dealing with cybernetics and cybernetics and system analysis. But at that point, they changed the focus and tried to develop sustainability and a concept of economic, the ecologic society as a very important issue. So as a futurist, I am asking myself, if you take this upon that they did 50 years ago, but what should we do today? Is the future marked by engaging towards sustainability, or should the future be marked by something else? What could be the most influential change in the coming 5 decades? What could replace sustainability driven through by current urban developments as a baseline for identity and worldview in today's long-term futures? Are we so sure about the importance to abandon the basic distinction between man and nature, between man and technology, which the sustainability term represented at that time? Maybe we should go sit down and try to rethink some of the basic premises behind the whole generation of environmentalists and promoters of sustainability thinking, research, and philosophy, policy. I don't say I have the answer, but I want to just raise some of the questions. Although we have a situation in the world today that we have some extreme quasi-fascist orientation by people who reject environmentalism, who reject human-shaped climate change and so on. So I'm not talking about that at all. I'm talking because that's even very, that should, they represent viewpoints, in my opinion, that are far back in the past. But it's a matter of what could be, something new in this sense, and how should we go beyond sustainability thinking today? And therefore, I mentioned that the World Future Studies Federation. I won't repeat that, but just want to say that it's a Professor Elke Siegfried, who's a German historian. I've written several books about the Federation. And she said that the Rome conference that they did back in 1967, which was the pre-conference of the establishment of the Federation, there were a lot of people who actually defined this. It highlighted danger of humankind destroying itself was allied to the implication of present and future globality. And that was some of the basic, a very important conference in advance of the establishment of the Club of Rome and the limit to growth study, just to mention that. If you look at the concept of sustainability and Anthropocene, we see that environmental, social, and business sustainability uses somehow nature as an absolute reference point. This is the harmonic, original, natural condition that are not influenced by human people. And you see the concept of Anthropocene, which should describe, or it's label the part of the history that humans have impact on Earth's geology and ecosystem. And that's in both these kind of both these kind of concepts. You have the nature as a sum of the given reference point, as a pure harmonic, ecological, balanced nature as a big reference point to everything. That means that to go beyond that, you have to also challenge the conventional distinction between man and technologies. So the common denominator in those two concepts is the critique of an effort to move beyond the absolute distinction between man and nature. What I'm trying to think is that the contemporary developments above all challenge our ability to differentiate between what is natural and what is artificial, what is given before man and what man has created. So if you see this development of constructed nature within urban context, it doesn't make that much sense anymore to talk about nature as something given and as a reference point to what is sustainable. And at least this is a challenge in one way or another. Even the tree in the forest and the human body emerge in our consciousness as man-made and so on and so forth. And that, I mean, if you can't keep that absolute reference point, you have to think the relation between man and technology, man and nature in a different way. And where am I as a human being, and what is the nature, and how do we interact, and how do I contribute to the establishment of expectation perception of a nature which is absolutely different than I am myself as a human being. If you look at science fiction, although in my opinion science fiction is not science fiction anymore necessarily, but you see demonstrate the importance of going into the importance to stimulate the continuous underline of the difference between what is not human and what is human. If you see in Blade Runner, or you see it in Minority Report, or other science fiction movies, the ongoing problem that they have is to, even if they see a human-like appearance, they don't know for sure if that person is a human being or it is a machine, because it's act like a human being, but it's not necessarily one. Avatar, the whole dynamic in Blade Runner, for example, is to think, is that really an avatar, or is it a really human being, and how are we supposed to differentiate here? And that's the reason why I think one of the most big challenges in future is not to merge, to go and abandon the difference between the human and the nature, but is to keep and develop criteria and processes and methods to ensure you that this person or this avatar is, that you immediately can imagine that this avatar is a person and human, and not a human being, but it's a machine, and I know that. And so you have to struggle and fight to keep up the distance, stimulate to keeping up the distance between you as a human being and the materiality and the things and the nature around you is something different than yourself. So in this respect, I'm just playing around with some concepts. The one is what I call a universal perspectivism. Universal perspectivism is, is a kind of it's a modernist, postmodernist. I try to go beyond all these kind of positivisms, in a sense that universal reflects the human need to construct an absolute reference point for its existence. For some, that could be religion and so on and so forth. But you have a need to find what is me, what is the human being, what does it mean to be a human, and what connect me to you and you and you and you all over the world. So have a drive and you have a need to develop something like that. And then you have perspectivism, which you know, adopted from the philosophy of Nietzsche. They also reflect the phenomenology of absolutism. The content of such absolute may change, that you can't be absolute in a conventional sense, that to say that religion A is the best absolute reference point, or the nature, or is the absolute reference point, or whatever. But you have to find, you know, something that is something that go beyond that, and that can change. And it's also going beyond what I call modernism and postmodernism, and all these you have post-formalism, post-industrialism, and so on and so forth. A lot of post-suffix that I want to go beyond. And therefore, I said we need to keep up the absolute distinction between man, the subject, and the nature object, and look into how is this distinction supposed to be kept up and stimulated to exist, so that I know that the nature there is actually a nature, something that I'm not myself, and that if I meet you somewhere, I know that you are a human being. And if I live in a city, I know that my city fellows are human beings, have rights to, as human beings have, same civil rights, and so on and so forth. That's a, you know, it's a long and somehow comprehensive philosophical discussion around it. But in this sense, I say that the nature is a kind of a conceptual, defined, undefined, in the sense that it's constructed, and it's not given from God or given from somewhere else. So that's the reason why I said that you have to develop a new kind of worldview, goes beyond modern and postmodern position. Personally, I'm very inspired by the philosophy of Immanuel Kant, which I've been writing a lot about and reading a lot for many years, and have a certain interpretation of that philosophy that fits into my thinking in this respect. That also means we should develop a kind of ontology of futures, in the sense that we have to develop expectation in a thorough way about future development, in which we also address this dichotomy, and what is the material development, what is the human development. So just to pinpoint my source here as a critic of pure reason, two main questions I think Kant's asked in that book is, how is a continuous and reliable progression within natural sciences possible? You see, the natural sciences, and I would also say engineers, as you as engineers, you are continuously developing products or whatever that are something different than you are yourself as a subject that are making it. Therefore, you know, you are cleaning up the surrounding the nature from subjectal adjectives. So you are, you know, keeping your subject. So more you are doing that, the more are you able to look into yourself as and define yourself as a human being. So how to secure a continuous dichotomy between man and nature, the absolute distinction between man and nature. So in my opinion, he turned his fundamental ontological epistemological question upside down. And that also means we have to go from the question about what unites subjects and objects to the wondering on how a sustainable and continuous dichotomy between them over time is possible in general. I don't want to have a lecture on Immanuel Kant's philosophy. I just want to mention it. So when that is said, I just want to end this intervention with what I call the third futuristic manifest, which is, I don't know if you know the first futuristic manifest, which was created by some poets in northern part of Italy in 1918. which had made some points that we believe in this point and we follow these guidelines and so on and so forth, which also was, at that time contributed to fascism. And then you have a guy named Franco Berardi, Italian philosopher, that in 2018 made something similar as 2009. I mean, it made something similar 100 years after that. He made the post-futuristic manifest. That's the reason why I've made a kind of a third futuristic manifest here, and I just read some of these points. It's also a secular and a post-religious position in the sense that God is not only dead, she has never existed. Nature is at the same time constructed and reproduced as the absolute opposite of the human, as what humans being per definition are not. Man creates him herself through her construction of what the human being is not, in the nature, technology, and the physical world. Man could also be a cyborg, but you have to know that it's a man. Pluralism, fragmentation, individualism assumes the common human project. Futurist pessimism is resignation. Biotechnology and genetic engineering are mainly subject to practical and functional assessment of the fundamental ethical and moral considerations. The term sustainability loses some of its meaning, becomes less meaningful as a nature in itself also considered to be a result of construction activities in our mind. And within the urban field, what I call constructed nature is respond to that. There's an inner link between increased economic growth, human liberation, and the solution to environmental problems. And that also, the green growth could, fits into that point here. Information is matter and vice versa. Information electrons are organism and vice versa. Universal perspective is an expression of what we call an enlightened confusion or confused alignment. The civilization has just begun. So that's for now. Okay, thank you for your attention. Hello?
Sí, thank you very much. Realmente ha sido muy interesante lo que el día de hoy hemos podido tener en la exposición de Eric Oberland, que es presidente de la Federación Mundial de Estudios del Futuro, que trató el tema Nuevo Paradigma, Ciudades del Futuro, y como tema específico, sostenibilidad y futuro, como las ciudades eco-inteligentes nos instan a ir más allá de lo natural y lo artificial. De Noruega. Gracias por su participación.
Gracias.
Todavía tenemos unos minutos y por favor quisiera que nuestro traductor le diga si pudiera a lo mejor responder algunas preguntas referente al tema. No sé si le podría, de repente hay alguna cuestión de parte de los conductores o los coordinadores referente al tema que ha tratado.
Eric, we're waiting if there are some questions of the public. Yeah. Right now, there are no questions.
It's okay.
Let's give it a minute.
A ver, para hacerle una pregunta, ¿cómo deberían ser ¿Qué requisitos debería tener una ciudad para poderla determinar eco-inteligente? ¿Y cómo podríamos motivar a los ciudadanos para ir más allá de lo que vemos y de lo que suponemos, para poder adecuarnos a la nueva coyuntura?
They are asking what would be the requirements for a city to be eco-sustainable?
Oh, you mean I should answer that, or?
Yes.
Yeah, I think the first requirement is to be as innovative as you can be, and not think necessarily as in conventional terms of being green only, but you have to develop these what are called constructed natures as far as you can get, and try to, just follow, for example, criteria within the green growth movement, that they're really looking into how to use to take account of scientific achievements and research achievement and so on and so forth, that you really are able to implement that as much as you can and so fast as you can. I think that's one of the most important premises of a sustainable urban development, in my opinion.
Por favor, hay que traducirle sobre esta pregunta que está en el chat sobre el diseño biofílico, qué es lo que conoce para esas ciudades futuras y si están interiorizados en la biomimética en relación a esa ciudad y qué opina de ella.
Okay, they are asking, what do you think of biophilic? If
What?
you know it, biophilic design, biophilic design, if you know it for those future cities, and if you are internalized in biometrics in relation to that kind of city. What do you think about it?
Yeah, I can't go in detail, but I think that must be a possibility, definitely. And at least you should sit down and think of the possibility that technology offer you, and look into how you can use it in your planning. Oh, okay.
Distanciado, guiando, planeando.
Muy bien. Thank you very much, Eric Overland, por su participación en el Congreso. Muy amables. Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much for having me. So I wish you a very success with the rest of the conference.
Thank you, Eric, for your participation.
Thank you. See you.
Muy bien, ha sido entonces la Conferencia Magistral número 7, Nuevo Paradigma, Ciudades del Futuro, como tema, y tema específico, Sostenibilidad y Futuro, como las ciudades ecointeligentes. Nos instan a ir más allá de lo natural y lo artificial. Agradecemos la participación.